David Laney, welcome back to the Single Track Podcast.
Thanks so much. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you here. And from what I can gather, this is your first time at Black Canyon. You're a veteran of the sport, but first time at Black Canyon.
Yeah.
What draws you to this race?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the most competitive race of kind of the winter, at least in North America. It's the Golden Ticket race. The field is incredible. One of the most stacked fields of Black Canyon, and possibly of the U.S. races this year. Definitely for the year so far, but a good chance to go race, hopefully fast, in the desert.
If you look back at your career and you think about all the races you've mixed it up in, are you somebody that likes to seek out the deepest fields, the most competitive fields?
Yeah, I think there's a reason to do each race, and sometimes it's for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I'm going to, as often as possible. Sometimes you just have to do a race because it's amazing or cool and nobody goes, and it's awesome. Sometimes it's fun just to do a local race, for other reasons. Sometimes, there's a lot of reasons, but going to competitive races is partly fun, and part of the requirement of being if you want to be a competitive or, have support from a brand, you kind of have to pick the most competitive races. And so that's one reason. Definitely running Black Canyon.
Obviously, you've had a lot of accomplishments in our sport, and it makes me think, are there still things that you want to do and accomplish? For example, is getting a golden ticket to Western States a goal out of this event?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a goal for probably 50 of the guys in the race. I think there's probably 50 guys who think they can get a ticket. And they all probably have there's a lot of guys who have a decent shot. And, on the ladies' side as well, it's very competitive.
I feel like UTMB has always been, or for a while, it's been the race that you've invested a lot of your chips in. You have some history at Western States, but to me, or at least from an outsider's perspective, it feels like UTMB has been the focal point for most of your summers in recent years. Can you talk about just how you think about Western States, and would that become the centerpiece this year for you if you got in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've done Western States 4 times, and I've done UTMB 4 times. I've done okay at UTMB twice and done poorly twice. I've done okay at Western States once and really bad 3 times, like walking for 40 miles 3 times. So yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll get into canyons as well, or I get into UTMB as well. I got to run canyons. They'll both be a focal point. I think it's hard to do both in the course of a summer, but I think if you kind of prioritize one or the other, you can do both. I love both the races, and regardless of what happens, I'll hopefully be at both and, hopefully get to race, but if not, be excited to be there and watch everything happen.
If you contextualized or you compared your current fitness to how you felt heading into similar important focus races in your career, where would you say it's at right now?
Yeah, I think, I've been working with Brett Hornig, Brett well.
Friend of the pod.
The Trails and Tarmac dude for 3 years now. The first year was a little bit of seasonal, and now it's been full time for 2 years.
Yeah.
And fitness is better than it's been for a long time. We've had a really consistent training block, built on a consistent training block. So it's been kind of slowly building better and better. But it's different. I'm in Washington, it's 40 degrees and raining every day, and going down to someplace that could be in the low 80s, probably will be in the high 70s. Is always tricky. But from a purely fitness standpoint, I'm excited to get out there, and you kind of have to be excited about those X factors, like the heat and how everybody's going to deal with that. So yeah, fitness is good. I'm excited.
Are you the same runner that you were in 2015 at this point, would you say?
Ooh, that's a great question. Definitely not the same runner. So it's, if you look at like a flat threshold run that I did in say 2014.
Yeah.
So I ran 2:17 in the marathon at CIM 2014. And I did an 8-mile tempo run. I come back and I do that same 8-mile tempo run now. It's within like 2 or 3 seconds a mile. And that's not in super shoes. So no super shoes then, not in super shoes now. So it's basically the same. Like maybe I'm 2 or 3 seconds a mile slower over an 8 or 10-mile tempo. But that's pretty irrelevant in a trail race. But like a 5-hour or 6-hour run is way easier now. So in theory, like, why, did I run well at UTMB in 2015? It's kind of just like a series of fortunate events. And I think my fitness is really the same. The sport as a whole has gotten more competitive. There's a lot more guys who can run 2:16 for a marathon who are doing trail races.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Yep.
And I still feel like I have the same, long trail days. And so hopefully I can have some of the same performances that I kind of had in that year, but I'm not living in that. Hopefully just enjoying it and trying to have some competitive races as well.
Those have gotten easier for you though. Those like 5-6 hour runs. Really?
And like just feel fine the next day.
Wow.
Like I think that's one thing Brett has done really well is as like every week is, I don't want to go into all of it, but like it's just like incrementally more or it's slightly less. And he has a really good flow of kind of getting up to a 6-hour run and being like, yeah, I feel fine the next day. Like I can go out and do a normal recovery run and feel like I did a normal run the day before,
If you think about the last like 5, 6, 7, 8 years in this sport, are there any things that you used to believe and do strongly in like 2015, 2016, 2017 that you have had a change of heart or a change of mind about in the last couple of years that you're doing differently?
Yeah, a ton of things, almost everything. I still train in terms of volume pretty similarly. I think the biggest thing is it's really like my love for the mountains have grown. And so I need someone like Brett to tell me you can't just go have fun in the mountains all day. Like you have to do these specific, and it's really boring. Like training is basically, when you're doing it right, is pretty boring and deliberate. And, I'm not saying that's how it is for anybody, but for me, like it has to be pretty structured and boring. And I don't just get to go out every day for 5 hours in the mountains, so it's different, it's different in that way. But
how do you think? Oh, sorry. I was going to ask you, how do you think about that era where, like in the Billy Yang film, you were living out of the car, chasing all the biggest mountains? Like at the end of the day, was that, or when you reflect back on that, was that a net benefit to your career? Like, how do you think about that in retrospect?
Yeah. So that works super well for a small training block. So you can literally just live in your car, be a dirtbag, eat from gas stations.
Yeah.
You don't have a weight room. You don't have PT. You don't have like the consistency of life. You don't have a toilet. You're going at the trailhead every morning. Then you're trying to find a burrito, and it's just like you got to fill up your water bottles before you drive to the trailhead at night so you can sleep. It's like this kind of chaotic existence, like super fun.
Yeah.
And it's really unsustainable. At least it was for me. Having the structure of a normal training plan is better for the long term, but living in your car for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or, 6 months can have a really effective spike. Like you can get really good really fast and have a good performance or two. And then you kind of have to get back and live a consistent life. At least that's what I have found for myself.
Right on. Well, Dave, it's always great to chat.
Yeah.
I love
totally
going back in history, and we're excited to follow your race next weekend. Anything else you want to leave the audience with before we go?
No, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it. And are you guys doing the live stream?
We'll do the live stream. Yep. I think it'll be myself, Brett, Dylan and Corinne, and Leah on the ground. It's going to be a great time.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.